They sold my ranch for $$25,000, and I didn't even know it was on the market. Sound impossible, right? Let me tell you how a person can lose everything they've ever worked for while fixing a fence, minding their own business. The way I found out, it hit me like a tornado out of a clear blue sky. I was at the Tractor Supply store, arms full of alfalfa, when my phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor. All it said was, asterisk, "Hey, Cass, saw a sold sign on your gate. What's up? I thought you weren't selling." Asterisk. I just stood there, staring at that screen, the weight of it sinking into my gut like a stone. I dropped the feed right there in the aisle, left it next to a display of birdseed. Didn't even think twice. Ran out so fast, I nearly took out Earl Jenkins' shopping cart. I think I shouted an apology over my shoulder, but I don't remember. I tore down the gravel road home, tires kicking up dust, heart pounding so loud I could hear it over the roar of the engine. And that's when I saw it for the first time. A heavy, ugly padlock wrapped around my front gate, the same gate my daddy carved with his initials 50 years ago. And there was, nailed to the post, a bright red sold sign, like some kind of sick joke. I must have looked insane, shouting at no one, yanking at the chain, trying to break it loose. My ranch, my home, locked. Then I noticed a real estate sign, some out-of-town company I'd never even heard of. It felt like the world was tilted sideways. The first thing I did, hands shaking so bad I could barely hold my phone, was call the county office. My voice cracked when I spoke. Asterisk, there's been a mistake. I don't belong to any HOA. How can this be happening? Asterisk, the clerk on the other end sounded tired, like she'd heard this before. Asterisk, ma'am, there was a foreclosure. HOA lien. The sale went through last Friday. It's all legal. Asterisk, I wanted to scream. Asterisk, how is that legal? Asterisk, but all I managed was a broken whisper. Asterisk, that can't be. My grandparents left me this ranch. This is Walkerland. Asterisk, but none of that mattered. Not to the paperwork. Not to the county. I guess that's how it happens. Quiet folks like me get steamrolled, while people like Cynthia Brewer, the new HOA president, get rich off the wreckage. And speak of the devil, she showed up right then. Her heels clicked down the drive like gunshots. Sunglasses perched on her nose, smile sharp as a knife. She didn't say hello, didn't even acknowledge me as a person. She just raised her phone, snapped a picture of me over the fence, and said with syrupy sweetness, asterisk, "You're trespassing now, sweetie. New owners close Monday." Asterisk, if I hadn't been holding on to that fence, I might have collapsed right there. Let me back up. My name's Emily Walker, 33 years old. I inherited Walker Ranch when my grandparents passed, and up until that day, I hadn't had so much as a parking ticket, let alone a foreclosure notice. I kept to myself, mended my fences, raised my goats, mowed my pasture. I thought that was enough. My neighbors? They were newer, big houses, fancy cars, fresh money. And somewhere along the way, a brand new HOA sprouted up the moment Cynthia moved in. I didn't pay much attention at first. My family's land was older than any of their subdivisions. The estate lawyer swore up, and down we weren't part of their jurisdiction. I believed him, until the letters started. At first, it was polite, a request to mow closer to the roadside. Fine, I thought. No harm. Then came a notice about livestock being visible from the road. On a ranch, no less. I laughed, tossing the trash. Then came the knock. Cynthia herself, heels and pearls, holding an iPad like it was a badge. "We've noticed a few violations," she said, all smile, no warmth. Asterisk, you're on our registry. Asterisk, I told her plain as day. Asterisk, my lawyer says otherwise. Asterisk, she just shrugged. Asterisk, sometimes deeds get lost. But you're here now. Asterisk, that should have been my wake-up call. I burned the HOA handbook she handed me, right there in the burn barrel out back, and thought that'd be the end of it. But those letters I'd been tossing in the junk drawer, they weren't just nagging notes. They were legal notices, certified warnings, lien filings, hearing dates I never showed up for because I never opened them. And the next thing I knew, There was an eviction notice in my mailbox and a sheriff on my porch telling me I had 72 hours to pack up and go. I sat on my neighbor Ben's porch that afternoon, drinking his sweet tea, staring at that paper like it might change if I looked at it long enough. Ben's good people, a Vietnam vet, always with story, always with a word of warning. That day he said, "Asterisk, you better take a good hard look at your granddad's deed, Emily. Cynthia came around last week asking about property lines. There's something off here, asterisk, and that's when it hit me. Maybe, just maybe, there was something in those papers that could save me. That night, I tore through the house like a woman possessed. Every drawer, every tin, every dusty box. And just as the sun was going down, I remember what my granddad used to say, asterisk, if it's important, check behind the stove. Asterisk. Sure enough, tucked back there in a tin was a deed, notarized, dated in 1964. Clear as day, asterisk, Walker Ranch is not, and shall never be, subject to any homeowners association present or future. Asterisk, I sat there on the floor, holding that paper, laughing and crying all at once. My dog Daisy came over, licked my face like she knew everything was about to change. But Cynthia wasn't done. The very next day, she rolled up again, this time with a private security crew, trying to stare me down from the driveway, clipboard in hand like she was queen of the county. But I had the deed now, and I wasn't backing down. I called every lawyer in town, one after the other. They either wouldn't touch the case or wanted a small fortune just to get started. It felt hopeless, until I found Jacob. He couldn't have been more than a few years older than me. Fresh out of law school, suit a little too big, but eyes sharp and full of fire. He sat across from me at his tiny desk, took one look at that old deed I clutched like a lifeline, and said, asterisk, they forged your attendance at the meeting where they claimed you joined the HOA. That's fraud. We can stop this. Asterisk for the first time in weeks. Real hope sparked inside me. Jacob worked fast. We filed for an emergency injunction, and by some miracle, the judge agreed. Everything, the sale, the eviction, the madness, put on hold until a proper hearing. For the first night in what felt like forever, I thought I might actually sleep, but I should have known better. Just when I thought I could breathe, I got served again. This time, Cynthia suing me for defamation, property interference, even emotional distress. It would have been laughable if it weren't so real. And it didn't stop there. My mailbox was mysteriously blocked off. My water line accidentally got dug up. Someone broke into my shed and let the goats loose in the night. The quiet peace of my home was shattered by worry at every turn. There were nights I sat on my porch staring at that gate, thinking maybe it wasn't worth it. Maybe I should just pack up and leave it behind. But that's when my neighbors started showing up, not with gossip, but with kindness. Carol from across the street, a widow with a heart bigger than the prairie, came by with a casserole dish and a survey map proving my land was never part of any HOA. You'll need this, honey, she said, pressing it into my hands. After that, the tide started to turn. People who kept their distance began stopping by with copies of old maps, dusty HOA packets they'd stashed in drawers, even resignation letters from the board. Mark, a former board member, called me one night. I quit after Cynthia started pulling her stunts, he admitted. Asterisk, I couldn't watch her steamroll good people. Asterisk, then came the court day. The air was so heavy you could feel it. Cynthia strutted in like she owned the place, wearing a bright red suit, her hair done just so, flanked by 3 high-priced lawyers. But beneath all that polish, you could see it. She wasn't as sure as she wanted everyone to believe. Jacob stood tall beside me, calm, steady, and when it was our turn, he laid it all out. The original deed, notarized and ironclad. Survey maps that told the truth of the land's boundaries. Evidence of forged signatures. And then the final blow, a whistleblower email from someone at the county clerk's office. It revealed the whole rotten scheme. Cynthia and a crooked title officer had conspired to alter boundary lines and flip my ranch to a developer for a fat payday. The judge sat there, silent but watching every word, his eyebrows inching higher as neighbor after neighbor took the stand. Old Ben, who'd seen more in his lifetime than most of us ever would, stood tall and clear, voice steady as a fence post. Asterisk, this land's been hers since she was knee-high, and that's the truth. Asterisk. And then came the moment I'll never forget. The judge declared the sale unlawful. The lien? Invalid. The ranch? Rightfully mine again. I watched Cynthia's face as the verdict sank in, her lips pressed together so tight they nearly vanished. And then the bailiff stepped forward, leading her out for booking on fraud charges. All I could do was let out a long, shaky breath. I thought I'd feel like celebrating, but mostly I felt bone-deep tired. Relieved, yes, but tired in a way that only comes when you've had a fight for every inch of what's right. And it still wasn't quite over. A few weeks later, the so-called new owners sent a letter threatening to sue me for breach of contract. Said I'd ruined their investment. Jacob didn't even flinch. He slid the judge's ruling across the table, told him to take a number, and that was that. Word got out. The story spread like wildfire. Reporters showed up at the gate. Neighbors brought pies. Strangers mailed letters thanking me for standing up because they'd been to the same kind of nightmare. That's when it hit me. This fight wasn't just about my ranch. It was about standing up to people who think they can rewrite the rules because they got money or fancy titles. Folks like Cynthia tried to bulldoze my family's legacy for tennis courts and swimming pools, but they didn't count on an entire town waking up and saying, asterisk, not today. Asterisk. Now, wildflowers bloom where the old barn used to stand. Daisy stretches out in the sun. Not a care in the world. And the sign's back on the gate, the one my granddad carved. Asterisk Walker Ranch, 1964. Still here. Asterisk. But let me tell you something. It never really ends. There's always another Cynthia out there. Another company with dollar signs in their eyes looking at land that isn't theirs. So here's my question. What would you have done in my boots? Was justice really served? Or is the system still rigged for those with power and connections? Drop your stories in the comments. Let's talk about it. And if you've ever been run over by an HOA or a greedy developer, remember, you're not alone. Hit like, share your thoughts, and don't forget to subscribe for more. Because sometimes the fight's only just begun.